Hey, Captain Matt, Boater Secret Weapon. Today we're here with Mike Mandel from Charlotte Boat Repair, and he's going to do the service on the 70 Yamaha. We're going to actually talk about a bunch of different things, changing the fluids, changing the, taking the prop off, and looking at all that. Mike, appreciate you helping us out and walking us through this.
Glad to be here today, Matt. Taking the oil drain plug out. If you pull the plug out with it here, there will be no oil.
All the oils run back into the...
And this is on every Yamaha. It's a 14 millimeter drain plug. Doesn't matter if it's a 70 or a 200.
Okay. And you got a little extender on there so you can get past the cowling. And you got it tilted up so that it just doesn't start draining out right away.
Correct. And then so you have this, and then there's always also the crush washer in there that you make sure you need to
get that out. Make sure it gets back on there before you...
Correct. So that's what seals the oil plug. Perfect. And as you can see, there's no oil or anything running out right now. So then, like to take a container, you can take a 5-gallon bucket, whatever you think, milk jug. Make sure you look at your specification on top of the motor. That's going to be enough capacity.
Okay, so you don't even worry about a funnel or anything. You just drain it right into the container that's going to hold everything.
Yep.
I like that. And this is a 70. You got plenty of room there, so as long as you've got...
And the thing I like about the 5-gallon bucket is a lot of time is it'll sit on the cavitation plate, so it kind of holds it there. All you have to do is just kind of balance it so you're not trying to do too many things at once. And these 70s hold no oil. They hold 2.2 quarts. So always check. And then once it starts dripping like that,
that's most of it.
That's all the oil.
Okay. Tilting it back up so you don't get any drips.
I always like to start with that part first, because you just get it done and out of the way, and then the second thing I move on to is letting the lower unit oil drain, and then while we're doing that, I start doing filters and such things like that, so that we can do other things instead of sitting here waiting.
Gotcha. And you see right away he's putting that that bolt back in with the O-ring, and so it's not lost. Do you ever have to replace those O-rings?
Sometimes, but these motors sometimes, like you said, 2,000 hours, and I don't.
You're changing the oil every couple of months, not every couple of years, so that makes a big difference.
And then it's, of course, it's just like a oil pan bolt on your car, drain plug. You just don't want to over torque it because you'll strip it.
Yeah.
So nice snug, and that's it.
So there's a nut you can see he's cracking right there at the kind of the leading edge of the bullet.
Yep, lower unit.
And you can see it start to trickle out, and then he's going to hit that vent. And when he cracks the seal on that vent, now he's going to open up the flow. O-rings on both of those?
Correct. That one's stuck in there, and we're going to get it out here in a minute.
And those O-rings are critical, because if you miss those, you'll have a leak at some point. Probably right away?
I would say that probably 50 to 60% of leaks and outdrives come from drain plug gaskets.
Really? And you've been, Mike, how long have you been doing this?
20 years now.
So he's seen a lot of different things. He's been up in the Great Lakes. Have you done saltwater?
Yep. Hilton Head, and I worked at Thunderbolt Shipyard for a while.
So he's seen a lot of different things. We're in freshwater here. He's done outboard, stern drives, saltwater, freshwater, big boats. I mean, you were doing
250-foot yachts in Savannah.
So which is awesome, which is one of the reasons why I asked Mike to do this, is he's got the expertise. What do you look for when you're draining that oil? So you see a little bit of the kind of discoloration in that section.
Right, so this is just, these boats get used hard. They go run, they run more than your traditional boat owner.
Oh, that's just the bottom of the pan, okay.
Yeah, but that's just black gear oil. These boats do run hard, though. They run 8 hours a day, sometimes pulling tubes, and I mean, sometimes they never shut them off.
Yeah.
Unlike your traditional boater like me or Matt, we'll go for a cruise, we'll go to the sandbar, hang out for 4 hours, or swim for 4 hours, and then come back in.
Yep. They want to get their full rental cost out of the boat.
And this is all part of an annual service that I recommend. It's a 100-hour service, Yamaha calls it, but an annual service really helps you and your boat keeping to run right on the lake and not have any issues that you would have from lack of maintenance.
Because you can see things when you drain the oil. You can see, is there a problem?
Right.
When you drain the gear lube, you can see, are we got water intrusion? Is there something that we may not have found?
And that's a very easy thing to spot when you're draining the gear oil. It'll be more of a milky color when you're draining it as opposed to a black or green color. Yamaha runs Yamaha's factory gear lube is clear, but anything that's going to have water in it is going to develop that milkshake process, and when you drain the oil, you'll know. We're just going to let that drain until it's done draining.
And you want to get as much of that out as you can, right?
Correct.
You don't want to stop early on the drain, because that's where all the nasty stuff is in that last little bit.
And just so you can see also, this is a good thing to check. This is the magnet on the drain plug. As you can see, there's a little bit of metal there.
Yeah.
On it. Not anything to worry about.
So this bolt is magnetized, so if you do have any of the gears, they're in this bullet, there's a bunch of gears that make the power transfer to the prop, and if anything's not working in there, there'll be metal shavings in there. And
this is
I can't even
normal.
see them in that.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty normal. This is very little fine metallic.
Okay. So when you do, and just what he did, run your finger across it and actually look. If you're not, if your eye's not trained like mine is, you know, Mike looks at these multiple times a day, every day of the year.
And I always just like to wipe it off really good. Like that little bit of metal's nothing to worry about. That's normal. I just like to wipe them down so there's nothing on them. So the next time, all the metal can cling right to it again.
It's like cleaning your dipstick, so you know exactly what you got the next go round.
On these 70s. It's a terrible Yamaha design for the oil filter. You're going to make a mess. I'll pull this out real quick and show you guys already what I did. I like to shove some shock rags down underneath in here just to catch some of the oil because it ends up running down the block and you don't ever catch it all, and then you got an oil mess in here.
Yep.
So I just try to shove a diaper, which is an oil absorbent pad. We call them diapers. And I just try to shove them in there as good as I can to catch all this oil that's going to leak out of here. And I mean, you saw how easy that came. So
you can see that dripping. You can see how far back in there that it would be nearly impossible without shoving those rags in there. And he's got plenty absorbent. Anything you're looking for on that oil filter? Is it pretty much get it out, keep it clean?
On these, it's not such a big deal, but on your inboard oil filters and stuff, just make sure this oil ring's staying on the filter, because that's a big mistake a lot of people make, is they'll pull the old oil filter out, O-ring stuck to the block, they put another one on, double O-ring it, oil sprays everywhere upon startup.
One O-ring necessary, two O-rings problem.
And then I just, just do your housekeeping. And then the new filter. And then so our new filter, this is why I like these Quicksilver parts, just like the Yamaha ones. They come with a plastic sheen over them. They're already pre-lubricated, the O-rings are. So you just pop this off. You already got nice lubrication on here so that the oil filter won't stick to the block.
Perfectly clean.
The directions, oil the oil filter, screw it until it stops, 2/3 of a turn, and that's that.
Yep. Okay. And we talked about this off camera, but you're using Quicksilver on a Yamaha.
Yeah, because
a couple of reasons.
The one reason is they're ready available to me. My supplier is a huge Quicksilver and Sierra. So
we're doing this in August of 2022, so everybody knows about supply chain issues, probably has experienced it.
But Quicksilver also, they make a very good product. Their filters are a little bit better than your normal Fram. Those type of filters, their particulates in here keep a lot more debris out of it. So this is why I use Quicksilvers. You can use Yamahas. I don't really think there's any difference. Like we talked, 2,000 hours on a lot of these motors and no issues that I've ever seen out of an oil problem. And that's that.
Now it's good. Now it'll come off just as easy as you saw about 30 seconds ago when you gave it a little bit of turn with the wrench, and boom, good to go. And he's got all that oil cleaned up.
And see, here's just an example of that rag. That rag got oil
deep in there.
I mean, that's
so
what came out of it.
Imagine all that just running down your cowling, getting everything dirty. When you do have a leak, it's hard to identify what's going on.
And then you're in your driveway or your garage somewhere you don't want oil all over the place, and it's leaking out of all of these places you don't want it to leak out of.
And now you're like, do I have an oil leak, or did I just do a poor job cleaning up the, what did you call it, housekeeping?
Yep. And then we're going to move on to the fuel filter here. So the Yamahas, they have a water sensor in here, and it'll actually alert you on the dash when you turn the motor on if there's water in here. It'll have a constant beep. When you shift into gear, that beep will go away.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
And this is how you know that it's not an oil pressure low or an overheat, because the alarm will go off when you shift it into gear.
Okay, interesting. That one I did not know. I knew I was going to learn a bunch of stuff today.
So this has a sensor in the bottom of it. So you always have to unclip this. And then when you're undoing it, you just need to make sure that this cord is spinning with the actual assembly.
Okay.
Otherwise, this will get caught, and then you're replacing a $100 part, which you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's one thing about doing your own maintenance and doing things yourselves is sometimes if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you can cause more expensive repairs than what you saved. So no fuel will leak out as long as you keep that thing straight up and down. You can see it's what, 2/3 full, 3/4 full?
Yep.
Okay. The filter just pops right out. O-ring always going to stay on there? Is it sometimes get stuck?
No, that's always, they never come off of these. And you'll notice when a filter's really dirty, it'll start to really discolor brown, and everything. This green will be brown and stained. Obviously, these get done every couple of months, so that they run a lot of fuel through them, so they stay pretty clean.
Dispose of everything properly. Mike obviously does this for a living, so he's got just bins of stuff that he disposes in bulk. So,
but this is back to this filter. This is what I get to talking about with these filters. You can just tell this is the Sierra one. Use these because we have parts shortage problems, but the green filter, and then you look at this one, you can just tell it's glued in there better. It looks like a lot better filter. It's going to keep some dirt out better, and that's why I like using these products.
And we were also talking about off camera, you know, you can save money going to Amazon and getting a, you know, impeller, a fuel filter, a oil filter, a fuel water separator.
And you'll probably pay 2/3 the cost of what you pay for this one, but
yet
it's not worth it in the long end. You'll be dealing with a problem in a year. You'll be dealing with a problem in a month.
And you see it if you enter as many Facebook groups as we are about voting. Impellers burning up within days, months, and a year.
And that's nothing. All that is just the material that it's made out of. It's made out of a cheaper rubber than the other impellers made out of. So yeah, everybody may have their preferences and might sit here online and say there's no difference. There is a difference, and that's been car parts all along, boat parts all along. There's people that make a quality product, and there's people that make a not quality product, and that's a cheap product.
Yeah.
And you get what you pay for.
You say it may be 2/3 cheaper, but that's only on a $50 part. That's only 10, 15 bucks. If that thing fails and leaves you stranded, what's your toe in? Or now you've got a bigger problem, and now you've got $1,000.
Or now you got to pay me to come fix it after you decided you're going to save $15.
Yeah. So keep it in context of the bigger picture of this is about fun, enjoying time, and relaxing. And saving $15 could lead to avoiding all of that.
Correct.
and money out of your pocket.
So a lot of people want to be out there and they want to be Mr. Know-it-alls, and they want to tell you that using Quicksilver parts will void your warranty. This is a myth. As long as you document your oil changes, you have your receipts of the parts you bought, and you can show that to Yamaha, they will warranty the motor just how all they warranty. The only time they will not warranty the motor is when the motor blows up at 200 hours and you haven't done your 100-hour service or your 20-hour service yet. The only thing to keep on track on this is this O-ring up top. You need to make sure that O-ring stays in there because it won't seal if it doesn't.
Yep. And then again, you've got your plug dangling. Make sure that you're not ripping that out of the bottom of the...
And I just kind of like to spin it with it. Like when I'm spinning it back on, you just kind of... It can get twisted a little bit, but just don't try to twist the wires out of the bottom of it. And then this is like a snug. And then I just like to go like that, and that's done. And then make sure you always plug your connector back in here.
There you go.
And it's really easy.
Just to push and lock. You'll hear that snap when it's in. And then tuck everything, kind of dress it all back so it doesn't get pinched by the cowling when you put that back on. And that's your fuel. You call this the
This
main
is the fuel filter on the motor.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so now we're going to fill the motor back up, and what I always try to do is I make the motor make sure it's level, because it can be unlevel.
Yep.
So I just try to make it. That's what they want you to do, make it level. On every Yamaha, on the top plastic cowling, there's the spec of how much oil this takes, and this motor happens to only take 2.2 quarts. That's all it takes.
And now we're using Sierra synthetic blend, and he's using 10W40 because
we're in Charlotte. Charlotte, your average boating day, you boat, it's 90 to 95 degrees all day long. 1030 starts to stop having a good effect once it gets really hot. It has a better draw from a negative number to about 90 degrees, where 1040 goes up to about 110 degrees of protection.
So if you're down south, probably 1040. If you're further north,
1030 will be fine.
You'd be good. And then Sierra is designed for
Suzuki's, but I run it in all of my outboard motors that require a 1030 or 1040 motor oil. It's a good oil. Like we've been talking about, these motors have 2,000, 2,500 hours on them. Probably some that we've sold probably have 35, 4,000 hours on it, and they're still running.
Yeah, and that's partly because I talk about this in my videos. Don't expect that from your pleasure boat that you run, every other weekend. But these goats get run multiple times a week, and Mike is pulling the cowling off and servicing them like this every couple of months, every month.
Every month,
season,
usually
probably.
once a month in season, because these boats go. I mean, they go out Monday, 8 hours, and they go out till Sunday, 8 hours. They're used every day of the week.
Yeah, and so the consistent maintenance and consistent running is good for an engine.
Correct.
How do you measure the 2.4?
So
you know about where it is because you've done it.
Yeah, so I mean, this is 4 quarts in this gallon. So
Okay.
I like to pour about half in it, and then I'll check the dipstick and see where we're at on it.
Okay.
And then you always just want to let it drain for. No, you don't have to let it drain for a long time, but let it drain for a few.
Get all down into the pan where
Yep,
the dipstick is.
Correct.
So you notice he's pulling the dipstick, cleaning it.
I've always wiped. My first wipe's always to wipe it.
So you've got, just like we talked about with the nut on the gear lube, you got to start clean so you know where you're at. All the way in.
And we still got a ways to go.
So you can see it's not that kind of hatched crisscross pattern. It's just above that. And so a little bit more oil until you get, and to go from where you're at to in that hatch pattern is very little oil,
Yep,
right? It's
yep.
not much that's required to get it up a little higher. And you're also, this is all in your manual. For a service like this, you probably don't have to reference a manual, but if you're digging into a challenging situation, do you look at manuals? Or do you use those as a resource, even as a technician that's been doing it for 20 years?
Well, I mean, it just like the other day, I had a 350 horsepower Suzuki. I don't have any literature on that. I bought the service manual for it just so that I could say, hey, this is the stator check. This is what the ohms need to be through it.
Yep.
It was a no start, so I needed to figure out what was going on with it.
$35, $50 to get that for the boat you own. I'm sure if we showed Mike's desk, that there would be stacks and stacks of these laying around.
Yep.
So spend that $50 and get it if you're going to do virtually anything on your motor. And referencers, if you just bought a brand new boat, peek through it, see what the basics tell you. So you can see we're just at that.
And that's where I'm gonna keep it. That's where I like to run all these motors, is right there at about 3/4.
So not quite to the edge. It's perfect, nice, clean. If you saw how almost translucent that oil is. So now when you check it, if you look at it, I mean on my finger even, you can tell that's been burned up a little bit. Thank you. I didn't think through that. You can tell, okay, this oil's getting really burnt compared to that right there. You can barely see it on this finger. Knowing that kind of stuff about your boat allows you to say, okay, we're needing to do things, or this isn't right. Let's have it looked at. So even if you don't do your own work necessarily, you can diagnose and you can avoid issues by checking things, inspecting, I guess is what they call it.
Just another thing you probably want to inspect, just make sure your oil O-ring's good, doesn't have any splits in it, it's not broken anywhere. And now when you're putting these on, everybody, this isn't a gorilla on there. That's tight enough for it. That's all I put them on, just a little snug after they're down in there. So now we're going to be filling the lower unit oil up. You can use the Yamaha branded gear oil. I use Quicksilver 90 weight high performance. I use this in almost everything except for Volvo Penta outdrives. It is proven to be some of the best water dissipating gear lube. If water is ingested in the gear case, it will keep the bearings from freezing up and everything else. So this is why I use this instead of the Yamaha, and it's just easy for me.
You work
I
on
do
all
it a
sorts of
lot,
different
so
type of motors,
this
yeah.
is what I use. I have a different kind of pump that I use because I keep it in my truck. Sometimes I do 5 a day. Is out.
The plug is out and the vent screw is out. Okay.
Correct. And then you just find your thread hole here. You're going to spin this up. You don't have to spin it to the O-ring. You can if it makes you feel good about it. It rarely makes any kind of mess. And then you pump. And we're going to pump until the oil comes out of this hole. And it's going to take you some pumps. These smaller Yamahas, they hold about a quart. The bigger ones, they'll hold about 2 to maybe a little bit over 2, some of them.
So he's getting the O-rings prepped.
People save these and reuse them for the $1 a piece they cost you. I say just replace them.
Yeah. Again, remember, you're talking about a $10,000, $15,000, $80,000 engine that you need to replace if something goes wrong. So try not to be too thrifty when you're doing this stuff and do it right. Keeping these O-rings clean, keeping them found. They're tiny,
and
they're very, very important.
And I always like to just get it ready, so I put the O-rings on so that when oil starts coming out of my vent hole, I'm ready to go with this plug.
You just pumping nice and easy and gently. And there we go.
And that's that.
So that's to the top of the gear case. These big flat screwdrivers, a must when you're doing this.
Yep, and you can strip these out, so we're snug right there. And that's that.
A little bit past snug.
And they will fall out if you don't tighten them up.
Not a good thing.
Wipe your excess oil off, pretty easy. And then same thing down here. And down here I kind of like to get a little creative. I unspin this with my left so that when this starts coming out I can just be right on top of it.
And again, you see he still has his drip pan down just to catch anything if it was to get past him. Shop rags all around. And again, that big flat screwdriver with that big flat head. Okay, so now Mike's going to change the fuel water separator. Can you talk just a little bit about why it's important and what this does and what?
Like I say, an annual service, this is included on my annual service. Yamaha recommends you do it every 100 hours too. If you get to the point where you have the beep at the dash because water's in your fuel, most likely this thing's full of water. Especially if you're running ethanol fuel in your boat.
And I've got a video on why ethanol sucks for boats that you can watch and understand.
It promotes water. It'll teach you everything you need to know in that. Always recommend non-ethanol. Hunter, even though he runs these boats out at Lake Wiley, he runs all non-ethanol gas in all of these boats because we've developed so many problems where we've had to pump fuel because of ethanol water. This is a Quicksilver filter. These filters are on the pontoons. They're mostly located behind the back seat somewhere, if they have one. Not all of them have one. You might not have one on your boat. Location always varies, but it's somewhere in the back of the boat usually.
And these filters are full of fuel.
Yep.
Hopefully fuel, maybe water.
Yeah, but like I have a feeling, so this one hasn't been serviced this year, and when me and Matt get down, we'll pour this out, and I bet you there's some water in here that you guys can see.
Keep them upright, don't let them spill.
So I already oiled the O-ring on this before I walked up here. I just took some oil off of the dipstick and just wiped it around there with my finger just to help it so it doesn't get stuck on there. And then the same thing with these. Thread them on until they stop. 2/3 of a turn and you're tight. So this is a castle nut with a cotter pin on the back of it. This is a Yamaha style prop. Your Merc Cruiser is going to be somewhat the same on the Alpha drives and on the outboards. It's got a different clip on here, but it's going to be somewhat the same. But for right now, we're just going to talk about this Yamaha one.
So using a needle nose pliers to get in there and pull that cotter pin out, or what'd you call it?
Yep, cotter pin.
Okay.
And then the castle nut.
Oh, the castle nut. Okay, that's the.
And these nuts do not have to be wrenched on there, guys. Just going over that.
The cotter pin is there to keep it in
Correct.
place.
I mean, you see how there was nothing even on it. Like that's as tight as it needs to be. And your only thing to be aware of is that you have washers and a cup on this one that helps space the prop out. So just be aware of this when you're taking this stuff off.
Pay attention to the order. This is one reason I'm not good at this is I just start ripping stuff off. Pay attention to the order. Take pictures if you need to on yours, but this gives you an idea of, what do you call this?
This is just a internal washer.
Internal washer. Then you've got that spacer nut or spacer washer.
Yep.
And then you've got your castle nut, and then you've got your cotter pin that's going to be, hey, this isn't coming off kind of situation.
And then the prop comes off.
And now this is your prop shaft.
And this is your thrust washer right here. And this protects the prop from eating your gear case, because if this wasn't there, it would spin right into the gear case.
Into it.
Actually, last year we had a boat. We had one of Hunter's guys. It was a Sunday. Nobody was around. They changed the prop themselves, pulled the prop out. This must have been stuck to the back of the prop when they pulled it out. Put the new one on. It ate this whole gear case up.
So we've got, you can see right here, you've got some water in there, but there's a seal. You want to talk about the seals and what's all going on in here?
Yep. So just how, like we just refilled that gear case, there's oil in the back of here. And these seals is what keep that oil in. What'll happen is fishermen fishing around the dock, fishing around your boat, they'll snag their line, it'll get snagged on your lower unit, and it won't just be like a little piece of fishing line, it'll be 4 feet of it. Then you go to your boat that weekend, start your boat up, go for a ride, and it'll just suck it in there.
And it gets wrapped around. You can see that prop is just like right here. There's a little space for it to get around, and
it'll eat this seal right up.
And then you start losing your gear lube, and you don't know because you don't have a gear lube monitor on anything but a Merc Cruiser.
Correct.
You have no idea it's happening until bad things start happening. So it is common.
Correct.
I mean, how many boats a year do you see that have at least some fishing line wrapped up in there?
I mean, I would probably say 25% of boats.
Yeah, so it's common enough that it's something to be aware of. Anything else that you're looking for in here?
Not really. So this is a pressed-in hub in this prop here, which means that the factory presses the hub inside the prop, and it's glued in there.
Okay.
This little bit of rubber gives it a little bit of give, but that's the hub. So imagine this would just be spinning in here when the glue let loose, because you hit something hard enough, or it was just time and it happened, and this hub spins. So essentially, your everything's still fine. You're spinning. Your prop's just sitting here on the shaft going nowhere.
Yeah, and it may be going a little bit, but it's not moving the boat.
Always the first thing to check is a spun hub.
A spun hub, and you would check that by. And he's saying motor off.
Running, motor tilted up. When you have it in gear, your prop's always going to lock one way. It's usually to the left.
Yeah.
I can't spin the prop right now.
Prop hub is good.
Well, sometimes.
Prop hub is not totally blown.
Right. Sometimes. So this would just spin right now.
Okay, that's a good first check of, is that maybe an issue?
Yep.
Again, motor off, gear shifter in forward gear, tilted up, do it. Okay, so now we're ready to put it back on. Are you going to grease anything
I'm going to put a little
up?
bit of grease on there. I'm not a big fan of taking grease onto these because it doesn't really do anything to it. So.
Same in salt water?
Yes. I mean, there is a thing is too much grease, and then it just makes it nasty for everybody else to work on your stuff. I mean, this is the amount of grease I'm going to put on this thing. That's it.
Okay.
The other thing grease likes to do, and this is also a debated fact for many years, grease likes to collect dirt. So dirt gets collected in there. You get into the sand. Sand's going to get in there.
Interesting. Interesting.
And these props on these boats, they get changed quite often because we rent the boats out. So,
yeah. So you've got your thrust washer prop, and then you kind of just spin it until it hits those splines right, slides right on all the way down. Make sure the prop is on the right way. The little
I mean, you can't really put it on the wrong.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
I mean, you could, but you would know right away. Like, if you ever put the prop on like this, I mean, we're going to know something's weird at that point.
Yeah, so your bolt's going to look a little different. So again, I like you're doing it for the first time. Take a picture of it at different stages to remind you, oh yeah, and don't make a silly mistake that's going to be end you up on a boat fail video or put somebody in danger.
This is a, whatever this is, a Polystorm Genesis prop. It's an Amazon prop.
Okay.
That's the brand, so that's the part number for that brand.
Part number.
This is a 14
diameter,
by 13 pitch.
Cool. All right, so now we've got the, what'd you call this again, the first one?
Thrust washer.
Thrust washer, prop.
We grease the shaft
Grease the shaft, check for any line. And now you're going to put your, what'd you call that?
This is just a space. I'm going to call these spacers.
And you see the direction that they're going. So this one's coming out. That one is the flat end because you're going to put the castle washer or castle bolt there. Hand tighten plus a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I turn it just a little bit. But you got to line this hole up for the cotter pin. So that's the.
So if you see that cotter pin hole is top one.
Huh? No, that's. You're about to see it right here.
Okay,
so I'm literally just going to turn the nut just enough so that hole's going to stick out. And then you just want to make sure you don't have a lot of play in here. And I might actually go one more just because.
And then you want to make sure that let's see, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it or not, but you can see that hole so you can stick that cotter pin through, and that's going to be that nut's not moving at all.
Unless the cotter pin falls out.
Unless the cotter pin, again, another reason, if you're a boater, do these inspections before you hit the water.
And you might catch a bad mechanic, just someone that's not giving you a good service also.
Yep. It's so knowing what that should look like, and knowing that 10-cent cotter pin could keep me from breaking down on the water. And then again, you see how Mike is kind of bending it and then bending it again so that it's not something to get hung up on to catch a toe on if you're swimming, and bending it in a way that's locked on good and tight.
But it doesn't have to be all the way over either, because that makes it a pain in the butt to get it off. So that ain't going anywhere.
So you've got just you can see a little, you shake that up and down for me. Maybe less than 1/8 of an inch play, but a little bit of play is fine.
Yep.
Not too sloppy.
Because then we're going to have something wrong internally if you do. But so this little spot, believe it or not, is where all the fishing line ends up in there. Is this little spot is where it ends up getting sucked through there.
So you won't see it, but you pull the boat out on the trailer, do a quick check. You put it up on the lift, do a quick check. You pull into your slip, lift that motor up, and do a quick check. And you can avoid that problem. Like you said, 25% of the time he sees it, and that is putting on and replacing a prop.